Little children, let us love, not in word or speech, but in truth and action. But God's firm foundation stands, bearing this inscription: the Lord knows those who are his. And let everyone who calls on the name of the Lord turn away from wickedness. In a large house there are utensils not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for special use, some for ordinary. All who cleanse themselves of the things I have mentioned will become special utensils, dedicated and useful to the owner of the house, ready for every good work. Shun youthful passions and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart. Have nothing to do with stupid and senseless controversies. You know that they breed quarrels, and the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kindly to everyone, an apt teacher, patient, correcting opponents with gentleness. God may perhaps grant that they will repent and come to know the truth, and that they may escape from the snare of the devil, having been held captive by him to do his will. You must understand this, that in the last days distressing times will come, for people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, inhuman, implacable, slanderers, profligates, brutes, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to the outward form of godliness, but denying its power. Avoid them. 2 weeks ago, we looked at anger and how we're all going to get angry when we encounter what we perceive to be an injustice. How Ben Franklin noted that we all have reasons for being angry, but seldom good ones. And how the Apostle James noted that no human anger produces righteousness. Last week, we looked at conflict, noting that it's just a disagreement, but each believes that they have the better solution. And how disagreement can be healthy, even necessary, to learn and grow and practice love. Today we're going to look at what happens when anger overwhelms us in conflict and our love fails. Abuse is described as the improper use of something, misuse. It's also described as treating a living creature with cruelty and violence, often repeatedly. When we think of abuse today, we tend to think in terms of domestic violence, spouses inflicting mistreatment and violence in the home. But there are no such limits on cruelty. We can abuse our neighbors, entire races and religions, our pets and our wildlife. We can abuse nature. And as alcoholics and addicts know, we can even abuse ourselves. A consistent theme in abuse is the bully, the person or people who doesn't care about the damage or injury inflicted, but is only interested in what they want. Dictators can abuse nations. The wealthy can abuse the poor. Corporations can abuse the environment. Tyrants abuse communities, and a family member may abuse another family member. In all of these instances, there is something counterintuitive working. The abuser themselves is afraid of losing what they want. An abuser is often afraid, so afraid that they are willing to use any means necessary to maintain control over something that they desperately desire to keep. Power, profit, status, and in the case of addiction, euphoria. like many other social problems, the abuser usually doesn't see themselves as the problem. Not only is the abuser's anger self-justified in the moment like any other anger, abusers tend to view their victims as the source of the problem. It's your fault. I wouldn't have hit you if you hadn't disobeyed me. You wouldn't have been so weak and vulnerable if you'd have worked or studied harder. It's my God-given right. It's the natural way of things. I'm not breaking any laws here. It's my body. Who are they to tell me what I can and can't do? So if abuse can occur in a multitude of circumstances, and the abuser doesn't see themselves as the problem, we suddenly face a rather awkward question. Could we be abusers? Is it possible that we are abusing people today, right now, in any variety of ways? Denial is not likely that any of us would stand here and say, golly, maybe I am an abuser. But let's work our way back through the justifications we just mentioned a moment ago. Do you or have you ever justified your actions by saying they put themselves in that position? It's the way God intended it. I'm not breaking any laws. It's my body. These are some pretty commonly used phrases in society, and I've heard most of them publicly used as a defense for a wide range of abusive behaviors. Women have been abused throughout history, not just physically and emotionally by their spouses, but by society as a whole. It's the way God intended it. Remains a widely used excuse for the treatment and subjugation of women, even today. They aren't as smart, which is pretty convenient since they weren't allowed to be educated. They aren't as strong, so it's really their fault since they can't defend themselves. The law says I can treat them this way, so it's okay. But the laws were written and justified by those in power. And once we began to take a deeper notice of the systematic abuse being inflicted upon half the population, upon the wives and daughters we love, we began to realize that kind of behavior was unloving, unchristian, and unacceptable. People of races and colors and religions that fall outside of the halls of power were and have been treated in exactly the same way. They aren't as smart. They aren't as strong. The law says we can do this. It's the way God intended it. But it remains unloving, unchristian, and unacceptable. Think all of these problems have been resolved? Think again. Where are people, including ourselves, using these phrases right now, today? It's the way God intended it. Ever said or heard that when arguing over the rights of alternative lifestyles? They put themselves in this position. Ever heard or said that when talking about how we treat alcoholics and addicts? I remember hearing that one a lot during the AIDS epidemic a few years back. They put themselves in this position. I'm not breaking any laws here. Ever heard or said that when you were arguing with a neighbor? It's my body. Ever heard or said that when arguing with self-injurious behaviors like smoking, gluttony, addiction, and abortion? We abuse others whenever we misuse them. Whenever we use our power directly, as with physical strength, or indirectly through our position and influence to prevent them from realizing the same comforts and freedoms and justice that we enjoy. It's really not that hard to comprehend. It all flows through what Jesus taught us as the first and most important of all the commandments. Love God with all your heart, all your spirit, and all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. On these hang all the law and the prophets. Everything in the book can be summarized in those 2 lines. Whenever we treat other people in a way that we ourselves would not want to be treated, whenever we justify that treatment with phrases like, they put themselves in that position, I'm not breaking any laws, it's my body, it's the way God intended it, we risk becoming the abusers of others. In the case of self-abuse, when we fail to love or respect ourselves, we can abuse ourselves. Abuse is an absence of love, the absence of everything we call Christian. Remember the core of last week's consideration of love in disagreement. Love is not envious, puffed up, rude, selfish, or evil. Love involves sacrifice, suffering long, bearing all things, believing all things, enduring all things, never failing. Love, when present, prevents abuse. We cannot love and abuse. We cannot be envious, rude, selfish, evil, and still love. We cannot lift up and assist those in need, promote freedom, equality, and justice, treat others or even ourselves with love and respect, and still abuse them. We all want to believe we're good people. But people have believed themselves good and inflicted terrible abuses upon others through the ages. Good men defended their subjugation of women. It's the way God intended it. The Southern Baptist Church once split from the rest of the Baptists because they believed that their ownership and treatment of slaves was fully compatible with the Bible. Good Americans defended their treatment of natives. They should have been stronger. We aren't breaking any laws here. And a little more of, that's the way God intended it. Good Christians have defended their abuse of Jews and Muslims. They're all going to hell anyway, right? If you are in the process of denying someone else something that you personally enjoy, comfort, peace, social rights under the law, if you are currently using phrases like, they put themselves in this position, I'm not breaking any laws, it's my body, it's the way God intended it, you are very likely actively abusing someone right now. Ignoring Christ's instruction to love and treat your neighbor as yourself, while you try to protect and preserve some measure of power, position, status, or authority that you fear you might lose. The Apostle James talks about this in James chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 1 through 17. Those conflicts and disputes among you, where do they come from? Do they not come from your cravings that are at war within you? You want something and do not have it, so you commit murder. And you covet something and cannot obtain it, so you engage in disputes and conflicts. You do not have because you do not ask. You ask and you do not receive because you ask wrongly, in order to spend what you get on your pleasures. Adulterers, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. Or do you suppose that it is for nothing that the Scripture says, God yearns jealously for us, for the Spirit that He has made to dwell in us, but He gives all the more grace? Therefore it says, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Lament and mourn and weep. Let your laughter be turned into mourning and your joy into dejection. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. Do not speak evil against one another, brothers and sisters. Whoever speaks evil against another or judges another speaks evil against the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver and judge who is able to save and to destroy. So who then are you to judge your neighbor? Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a town and spend a year there, doing business and making money. Yet you do not even know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wishes, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Anyone, then, who knows the right thing to do and fails to do it commits sin. Abuse isn't something other people do. It can be something that you and I are doing right now without even thinking about it. As we consider our response to disagreements in the presence of anger in our hearts, the times when we find ourselves justifying a response we know deep down is incompatible with what Jesus taught us and it asks of us, we become the risk, we risk becoming an abuser of others. It's not the anger. Jesus, Paul, and everybody knows that we're going to get angry when we encounter a perceived injustice. It's our response to that anger that defines us. It's not disagreement or conflict. We're all going to wrestle with what we think is best for everyone. It's how we respond in that conflict. Will we respond with anger, proclaiming our righteous privilege to respond in this manner and toy with abuse? Or will we respond with love, choosing to be patient, kind, polite, humble, tolerant, and loving? The choice is always ours. Amen. Next week is Palm Sunday. The subject matter for the service is going to be pain and suffering. Why would a good and just God allow it? If you want to do some Bible reading in advance of that, Matthew chapter 5 is an excellent place to read. There's a lot going on in Matthew 5. And the reflection for the week, is it God or a choice you have that has brought pain into your life? Is it God or a choice that you have made that's brought pain into your life? Look forward to seeing you all next week electronically, and we'll keep an eye open on email and the sites for any information coming and going through the week. Until then, may God bless and keep all of you. May he keep you healthy. May he keep you out of harm's way. May he draw you away from evil and the evil one, and give you clarity of purpose and mission and hope and faith in the coming week as we approach this Easter Sunday 2 weeks from now.